Okay. Hey guys, Minuki here. This is the third or fourth attempt trying to record this. I honestly have lost count. What if Deku had bone manipulation is basically Deku's quirk is he's able to it's a mix of a hardening quirk, an offense quirk, and a creation quirk a little bit. Creation quirk, what I mean by that is whenever Deku gets into UA, he learns that from watching Momo fight, he's thinking he's just been using his quirk as offense and somewhat defensive like Hiroshima, but he hasn't really thought about it the way she's using his quirk, because he can do that too. So we'll get to that later in part 2 or part 3 probably, if I can get there first. But bone manipulation is basically Deku can harden his body. And why do you what I switched to this picture? Basically because when I say he can harden his hands and create bone claws, a lot of people think of Wolverine. Hopefully, I don't get copyrighted for that, but yay, Disney. Anyway, I'm sorry if I sound very annoyed. This app I'm using just didn't tell me when it stopped recording, and yeah, it's still recording. Okay. I have to keep an eye on that now. But anyway, when I say bone claws, I mean like wrapped all the way around his fingers, not coming out of his knuckles. Kind of like that, but so far he can only create like what you can see at the top of the screen right now, kinda. He can only create those a little bit, like around his fingertips, like covering the section of his finger and his fingertip, so he can harden that part. But he learns that when he's little, like 4 or 5 years old, whenever he learns he has a quirk. But this quirk is based on a real life bone defect that people have. Growing up, Deku, his mother had the defect, and she had a caretaker named Rosa. Her quirk was, let's say it was somewhat like Recovery Girls, a little bit. It would help, let's just say it was like a medical quirk. And what I mean by medical quirk is she could she had morphine for a quirk, let's say that. So she would help Inko and all that. Help her out with stuff, do all that. But hopefully this isn't cut off before 8 minutes again. Her quirk basically helps Inko with her bone defect because her joints would try and fuse together, her spine would try and fuse together. She couldn't freely sometimes move her fingers correctly, so she would sometimes be stuck sitting down for extended periods of time. And Deku, whenever he was born, his quirk was a mutation from the bone defects. This is based on OC I was creating, so I was trying to make him overpowered, but finding ways to dial him back. And by doing this, I ended up with this quirk. But it takes a lot of training to master, because if he ever uses the quirk at 100%, it could be worse than One for All. That is saying something. But, hmm, um, so Deku goes throughout his life. Whenever he was born, he had little divots on his forearms that they thought was part of the condition. So they did some testing. They found out that he did have the condition, but it also seemed like they didn't bother Deku because he wasn't really crying about it. So they thought Deku may have had a pain tolerance quirk because these looked very painful coming out of his arms. But no, his quirk is mutation in an emitter quirk. So he can basically, like Hiroshima, he can harden his body to as hard as bone. But part of it, offensive part of it, is that the claws I'm talking about, like these. Whenever he's 4 or 5 years old, he was bored and he wanted to try and get up a tree. Because honestly, at that age, everyone wants to climb a tree. I've done it. I'm pretty sure everyone has had that feeling. But he couldn't get up the tree and he almost was falling. And they were at a park when this is happening. A Bakugo was nearby. Bakugo was kind of concerned for Deku because this was before he developed his quirk and became Bakugo. So, Deku was trying to climb a tree. Bakugo saw this. And Deku was having trouble doing it until his quirk activated. Because he didn't really know how to control his quirk. He listened to his mom and Rosa a lot. I almost said, yeah. But in doing so, he never really activated his quirk because he always was careful. So he essentially makes the claws for the first time a little bit more jagged and unsmoothened out, kinda. So he does that and he climbs the tree successfully. His mom is on a bench and she hears him Mizuku call out. So she looks over as much as she can and she sees him up in the tree. She starts panicking and she calls Rosa. Because Rosa was there too, let's say. Because they would go to the park and talk and sit down and just be there and try and be happy. That sounds kind of depressing, but let's go with it. Anyway, after that happens, Bakugo is kind of concerned because Deku, whenever they all start panicking, Deku starts falling out of the tree. And his quirk fully activates to the point where he hardens his body for a second whenever he hits the ground. And when he does this, he makes kind of a little crater, kind of similar to whenever in the My Hero Academia movie, if anyone's seen that, or he kind of gets put into the ground and he can't move for a minute until he starts calming down and turns off his quirk. So everyone's kind of surprised and shocked at this. So he goes to the doctor and he learns that, oh, your quirk is kind of interesting because it's basically a mutation of a medical condition you have. And those are let's just say those are very rare cases. Because his quirk is completely different and it's based on, but it's still something he inherited from his mother. So, Deku learns that. They do a couple, like 3 or 4 hours of testing, and they try and figure out what Deku can really do with his quirk. And they learn that after a while, Deku starts getting tired. He starts wanting to sit down a lot more. And after they do that, Deku, let's just say he has his fingertips hardened. And the doctors ask him to turn them off. So Deku would try and turn them off, and he can't turn them off. So he gets confused and he gets a little panicking. And he goes to try and run out the hospital door to the doctor's office. And whenever he does do that, he kind of, let's just say he tears apart the door a little bit. But it's not really not a door, let's not call that. It's a cement wall next to the door. He kind of falls and trips and he moves his hand forward to try and stop himself. But since his hand is, geez, I forget how big my hand is. But since he's a 5-year-old, let's just say he kind of punches through the wall a bit. But his hand stops like around halfway through and he hurts and breaks part of his arm. Okay, good. And whenever he does do this, the doctors learn that his quirk, it may be based on manipulating his bones, but it's still part of a birth defect because his hand is still hardened. But there was no. It was basically like punching through drywall for Deku because there was no rebar behind the cement he punched through. Because his hand is small. Let's just say he put his hand into a fist when he did that. But after he did this, he would try to unharden his hand, and he can't, but his wrist is also fused together. So the doctors have to break his wrist and reset his wrist and do all this for him. But after they do that, they realize whenever they're fixing his hand that a lot of the broken bone that is inside his wrist is actually moving downward into the spikes he has. So they're thinking that one way his body has adapted to the birth defect is that the extra calcium in his body that's supposed to be growing around his bones and fusing them together is actually part of his quirk. The extra calcium actually helps build Deku's hardening quirk. So they tell him this, and they tell him to be careful for overusing his quirk, because if he is completely hardened, he basically is more durable, more stronger, and he's not Kirishima levels. He's around, let's just say he's around Bakugo's level with the like the tiny explosions. So he can only really do his hands and his fingertips and stuff like that. But growing up, Deku does iron bone training because he doesn't want to break his hand by accident. Sorry, that was something on the screen there. But he doesn't want to break his hand by accident. So he does iron bone training, he does regular training and weightlifting. He does some martial arts, just really trying to build a body and trying to help work on his physical endurance and strengthen his bones. So one thing he does do to train his quirk is I find it kind of funny because I did this is based on an OC. I don't know if I said that earlier, but one thing his quirk actually helps work on is the stronger his bones get, the stronger his quirk is. And Deku, he likes to hang on. One thing Deku likes to do is he likes to eat a lot of dairy. He has a fondness for dairy, and it's kind of funny because a lot of kids in school growing up, I feel like everyone's been there when I say this, but they didn't want their milk at lunch, so Deku would take it, he'd drink it, he'd kind of be like how Bakugo would be if you see him eating a red bell pepper, because that's something you can see Bakugo actually doing to help train his quirk, but he doesn't try to. He just is cocky. So Deku, in doing this, he let's do a time skip to middle school. So Deku is around, if not a little bit higher than Kirishima level, and this is right before the. Actually, I've seen a lot of the what ifers do this. Let's do this. Okay, so basically everyone's asking, "Oh hey, who wants to be a hero?" I know that there are some of you here that are applying. There are two of you here that are applying for UA, and Bakugo, since he's actually Deku's friend in this what if, because he's seen how Deku's very positive and a very good person to look up to for his strength and trying to be a hero. He doesn't idolize Deku, he respects him. They have that camaraderie between rivals, but they're not rivals yet. So basically they say, "Oh, who wants to apply for UA?" Bakugo does his speech a little bit, but he's a little bit more calm about it. He just stands up to the class and announces that he doesn't think you guys as quirks are fit to be heroes. Your guys' quirks can do something else, like the what was it? There was someone there with a fire quirk. Like how the fire quirk guy could be a chef and cook things with his quirk. Well, one of the other guys who had like eyes popping out of his head could be a what could that guy actually be? I don't know, back to that. But basically, they start saying that, oh, two people have applied for UA, and Bakugo, he's kind of surprised by this, but he doesn't really care because he knows, oh, it must be Deku. So, let's skip to the Sludge Villain attack. Deku's walking home and he's talking on his phone to Rosa. Let's just say because she asked him to run by someone real quick to get something. And Deku, he also wants to pick up some milk or a block of cheese because it's still kind of funny to me. Just, oh, what's that guy doing over there? Oh, he's training his quirk. Why is he eating a block of cheese? You know, because it'd be funny. But in the description, I'll try and bestly describe the quirk as I can. It's hot in here. But basically, the Sludge Villain attacks Deku. Deku, he hardens his body. Well, he gets caught by the Sludge Villain, but when he does, he hardens his body and he starts to shoot the spikes at the Sludge Villain. And these aren't really effective to the Sludge Villain because they're spikes. Deku, basically, he would swing his arms and he'd shoot them. And they're probably about. Bones are 5 times stronger than steel, but with iron bone training and a lot of calcium, training his quirk. Yeah, I want to say he'd probably be like a little bit stronger than not not Mirio level at all, but uh, let's just say he's somewhere around there. He's stronger than Kirishima and could like actually tank one of Bakugo's explosions, but he's not like run through the explosion All Might level powerful. So he's going to get caught by a Sludge Villain. All Might does a smash. All Might is kind of surprised because Deku basically gets up immediately after this and is kind of concerned because, oh hey, it's All Might, it's All Might. Thank you for saving me. Can I get your autograph? Like, because he's still fanboy Deku a bit, and that happens. That whole thing happens. Deku does latch onto him and find out All Might's secret, but he's kind of a little heartbroken about it because he basically explains his quirk to the guy and tells him what's going on with his family. All Might's kind of surprised by this because he sees how positive Deku was just being earlier, but he's got a change in tone. He tells Deku that yes, he can be a hero, but probably not number one. And Deku asks about this, and he explains that to be the number one hero, you need to be someone people can look up to. And people look up to him because they don't know about his injury. Deku doesn't really understand this, but All Might explains further and basically says if people were to know about my injury and I was still the number one hero, all people would do is wait for my time limit to disappear and wait for me to shrink down before they attack me. So, Deku understands this because he explained the weaknesses to his quirk, how he's trained it, and Deku's like, he's buffer than Canon Deku at this point. Probably about twice as buff. Probably around like, buffer than Kirishima, yeah, let's just say. Because he's basically an advanced Kirishima. But he does all this, he learns about all that. The Sludge Villain, let's just say the Sludge Villain didn't get away in this part. Because whenever Deku was hanging on to All Might, he actually grabbed one of the bottle. Yeah, he grabbed the bottle. Because let's just say it was let's say it was a 2-liter bottle this time, because this is a what if. Anything can really happen. It's not based on canon. Well, it is based on canon, but it's why didn't Oma use a 2 liter bottle? That's what I didn't understand. But yeah, anyway, back to that. So Deku, he he gets more emboldened because he actually does want to prove All Might wrong. So he does actually train harder for the 10 months, and he actually does. Sometimes his fingers will fuse together, but he's actually learned that if he focuses his quirk, if he hardens all the flesh in his hand and all the skin on him, that he can essentially, when he does turn it off, he can actually fix his hand. So that I'm doing it that way. That way he doesn't have to visit Recovery Girl every day. Really. Oh hi Recovery Girl, I need your help again. Basically like Kane and Deku. Like he's literally broken, like physically and mentally. Anyway, so I'll do the entrance exam in the next part and basically go from there. I hope you guys respond good to this, and this is Manuki signing off.